Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today for my mid-season review is McLaren. So starting with their driver head-to-head, we have Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Of course, the youngest driver pairing in Formula One this year. So for points head-to-head, 66-34 in favor of Norris. Looking at just the main Grand Prix points, removing the sprint race points, 66-27. So very fair, large advantage in favor of Norris still. Race head-to-head 7-3, but average finishing position between Norris and Piastri is very, very close. 10.13 for Norris, 10.38 for Piastri. Norris had quite a few races at the beginning of the year. I can remember Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia off the top of my head, which would lower that number quite a bit. So in the races, Norris has been quite a bit better than Piastri, but Piastri has been catching up and has gotten quite a bit closer to him as the season's progressed. Quali 10-2 in favor of Norris in the head-to-head, and the qualifying delta is 0.186, so a little bit less than 0.2 of a second in favor of Norris on average. So not small, but not a overly large gap either. And I think given given what we know about Norris as a driver and his qualifying pedigree, I do think that it's a pretty good showing by Piastri overall, since it is his rookie season. Looking at the two drivers in my power rankings, 6.2 on average for Norris, so quite a bit above average, and Piastri 11.4, which is a little bit below average. But that being said, compared to the three other rookies that we had on this year's grid, of course there's only two of them now, much better than Sargent and DeVries, I think. In terms of expected points, 60.6 for Norris and 45.0 for Piastri, based on starting position. So you'll notice that for Norris, he actually has more points, 66 in Grand Prix, than his expected points, so doing better than expected, which given a driver of Norris's caliber is not a massive surprise. Piastri a little bit below that, but that being said, not a big deal. Z scored a marker of kind of the gap between teammates, 0.98, which was the sixth largest gap looking at over the 10 teammate pairing. So a little bit below average, smaller than average gap there, which I think definitely shows Piastri's quality. Looking at the qualifying gap, first 5 races were not very good for McLaren. I remember doing that video at the quarter mark of the season. There was definitely, the tone of the video was much different than it is now. But 1.334 average gap to pole those first 5 races, which ranked 6th. Races 6 through 12, 0.440. So they knocked almost a full second off in terms of qualifying, and that moved them up to 5th. But I don't think that really tells the whole story. Of course, they've moved up to 5th past Alpine, but looking at the actual gaps here between the two segments, here they were just a little bit above the group that included Haas, Williams, Alfa Romeo, and AlphaTauri. But here they're 5th and very, very close to the teams in 3rd and 4th, Mercedes and Aston Martin. So definitely a massive jump up in mid-season. Pretty unexpected, given that a lot of people thought that we weren't going to see a lot of changes throughout the season because of the cost cap. But McLaren have shown that that's not always the case. So definitely the second quarter of the season, if you will, has been a much better improvement for McLaren compared to that first quarter. And for them, they'll really be wanting to carry that momentum through to the end of the season, maybe even push for 3rd or 4th in the Constructors' Championship. So speaking of the Constructors' Championship, let's look at how they've done the last several years. 2020, 202 points, 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. Their first top 3 finish in a very, very long time. First top 3, I believe, since 2012. Yeah, should be 2012, I believe. 2021, 275 points, increase in points, but of course, 2020 was the COVID-shortened season, so a lot less races. So nonetheless, an increase in points, but they dropped to 4th in the Constructors' Championship. Lose out that battle with Ferrari, 4th in the championship. I do think you could blame a little bit of that on Daniel Ricciardo's subpar performances that year. That being said, I do think that the Ferrari was a pretty good car that year. 2022, of course, first year with the new regulations, big drop off compared to 2021, 159 points and fifth in the Constructors' Championship, with a vast majority of those points coming courtesy of Lando Norris, with a really, really poor season by Daniel Ricciardo. 2023, I think there were pretty high expectations coming into the season, but the news surrounding the team, even in preseason testing and even at the team's launch, I remember, was really, really down and not particularly optimistic. And that kind of really bore itself out of the first several races. We're getting knocked down in Q1, retiring, lots of retirements. I remember Norris, the first race of the season, he had to make 6 pit stops because the car kept falling apart. And things were looking really, really grim for 2023. But they've really managed to pull themselves out of it. I would say they're probably in the bottom or the middle of that kind of second group after the Red Bull right now, or on the balance of the last couple of races. But again, really small sample size. So we really need to see a couple more races, see how they do at Zandvoort, see how they do at Monza, to really get a guess of where they stand come the final third of the season at that point. And the other thing as well, like 2021, they got a pole and they got a win on merit. They could have had 3 straight poles as well. I guess with the sprint race, it was kind of a pole position for Ricciardo that year, but nonetheless, really, really good results that year in 2021. So of course, the drop off in 2022 was definitely a bit unexpected. That being said, they're looking much better this year, and of course, they're going to be looking to build for next year as well. I'm not going to say championship challenge because I think at this point that's pretty optimistic given how far in front the Red Bulls are, but if they can build towards being a team that can get consistent podiums, get a couple wins here and there, I think that would be a big success for next year. So that's all for my look at McLaren midway through the 2023 season. Next will be Ferrari, of course, fourth in the championship. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.